you got given shit along the way and you turned that shit into gold. And I want to learn how you did that.
I got forced to retire from boxing with my hands. It's so easy to go down that rabbit hole of looking at negatives, and I couldn't do a thing. I had these big bandages on, and you know what it's like. Everybody asks you, when's your next fight? When's your next fight? When's your next fight? When you fight again? That's all you bloody hear. Come on, mate, pull your head out your arse. Fucking do this. You know, that's your motivation right there.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Getting Back Up with me, Anthony Ogogo. This is your weekly dose of hope and inspiration. Each week I talk to a guest who's achieved something great in both their life and or career, but only after suffering massive setback and adversity. I have guests from sport, from business, people that have done great things in their life. But today I go back to what I know, and that's boxing. Today I'll talk to Tony Jeffries. Tony is a very good friend of mine, and as well as that, he's an Olympic bronze medal winning boxer like myself. He won a bronze medal in Beijing in 2008. He's a former professional boxer, and like myself, Tony Jeffries had to retire from boxing at 27 years old after suffering really bad hand injuries. Now, what Tony's done in his life, he's taken something that probably should have been the worst thing to happen to him, and he's turned it into the best thing to happen to him. Tony Jeffries is now a superstar in the world of boxing, recognized way more from being a teacher, an online boxing coach, than he ever was as a professional boxer. He earns more money now as an online boxing coach than he ever did as a professional athlete. He truly is a massive, massive, massive inspiration. I think you're gonna love this podcast. Tony also throws questions back to me a lot. I tell a lot of my story in this podcast because, like I said, our stories are unbelievably similar. I truly think you're going to love this podcast. There are so many learning lessons from Tony, and also I think it's really entertaining. So, without further ado, sit back, relax, get ready for this one. Let's get stuck in. Tony Jeffries, the mighty Mackem.
Gogo, the legend.
Stop
Absolute legend. Look at this.
Mate, I am so unbelievably proud to have you on the podcast. And this is going to be... I'm going to sound like a fanboy today. I really am, because we go back a long way. Too long that I would really care to remember. I've done my research for last... I knew you were a mad success. I knew you've done unbelievably well, and we're going to get into all these things in the next hour or so. I had no idea the YouTube, the Instagram, the social media world, I'm not that privy to. I had no idea just how much of an absolute unbelievable success you are. So before we start, I just want to say how proud of you I am. You very much are an inspiration. You really are, and I hope you realise that.
No, I mean, it really means a lot to us, you know, it really does. But likewise, you know, I'm on a call with you now, and just speaking to another Olympic medalist, it's amazing. You know, I was in Bangkok airport the other day, and there was some fella in front of us in the line, an older fella, and he went, "Oh, you, that the boxing guy, I've seen you." I said, "Oh yeah, have you boxed before?" He went, "Yeah, actually," he said, "I competed in the Olympics." I was like, "What?" He went, "Yeah, I went to the Commonwealth Games as well for Pakistan back in 98 and 96. And then I stopped being a proper fanboy about this guy because, you know, it's very rare that even though I'm an Olympian, you're an Olympian, it's very rare to, you know, share the same company as another Olympian. So it's like, wow, because I know, you know how hard we worked to actually get there and achieve what we achieved, just to get there, and never mind getting the medal. So I'm in awe of this fella now. He's like 55 years old, and I exchange numbers, and I'm been texting him and all that. So yeah, mate. Anyway, so I'm very proud of you, and I'm proud to be on this show with you, mate.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. And that just shows how much of a nice guy you are. And we're going to talk all about this, mate. There's so much in your life to dive into. There's so much, the athletic side, the professional side, the business side, the personal side. But before we do, I want to ask you one simple question, and I'll ask you a lot of questions today, but the first question I'm going to ask you, and the most important question I'm going to ask you, and I'd like you to answer very authentically, as you will, how the bloody hell are you, mate?
I am absolutely fantastic, mate. I'm living in Thailand. I'm a full-time content creator. I can't believe I'm saying that. Teaching people boxing education, and yeah, I'm like living around the world. I haven't got a home now. We're traveling with me family, and life couldn't be better, mate. It really couldn't, and I'm really blessed to be in this situation. Yeah, can't believe it. How are you?
I'm good, mate. This isn't about me. No, this isn't. I'm good. All the better for talking to you, and I'm so proud to hear that. When I created my podcast, when I had the idea about doing this podcast, I was in the midst of my injury hell, and for me, it very much was hell. And I wanted to create a catalogue of inspiring stories that people can be inspired by. And the podcast is called Getting Back Up, because I talk to people with wonderful stories like yourself that have achieved great things in their lives, but only have to suffer massive setback and adversity. And I wanted to create a catalogue where I could press play and listen to inspiring stories to kind of keep me going. Because at the time I was trying to get back in the boxing ring after suffering my eye injury, but I wasn't ready to make it back then, so I was still in the midst of my hurt and of my anguish. But when I got around to doing it, I wanted 2 boxers on the podcast in my first list of 10 people, because I didn't want this to be a boxing podcast. This is very much a life podcast. And the 2 boxers I wrote on the list were Tyson Fury. He went through his struggles and then came back to become world heavyweight champion, unbelievably inspiring. And you, Jeffrey, because what you've done, you literally are what this podcast is all about. Getting back up. Like getting handed to you shit cards, getting given shit and turning that shit into gold. And that's what you've done. And for those people that don't know who you are and why we're talking, can you let them know who you are and some of the things that we're going to be talking about today?
Oh, mate, yeah. So like yourself, an Olympic medalist boxer from the 2008 Games. But then, I got forced to retire due to hand injuries. And, if there's anyone in the world that can relate to this, being at that level and then getting forced to retire, it's you. How many pro fights did you have, mate?
12.
12, yeah. So I had 10. And, then, like yourself, I've done this since I was very young. I was 10 years old and went all the way through, retired when I was 27. And then it's like, now what? Like you see, how do you get back up from this? Because now something you've done since you were a little kid, and you never look really past it and after it. Then I end up moving to Los Angeles, opened a gym, opened another gym, started an education program, got on some TV shows, did some Levi's modelling campaigns, which was crazy enough.
Which we're going to come on to. We're going to come on to it.
Then in 2020 my gyms got closed down due to COVID, and rather than sitting at home twiddling my thumbs, I went to the gym and I spent every hour I could making content and trying to build a brand on YouTube in particular. And that's when my YouTube took off, and now today, it's like July 25th, we're recording this, I've got like 1.7 million subscribers on my main YouTube channel.
This is, I want to do this, mate. I want to do this. I've made a whole little section. So, you are, as I said in the intro, you are a YouTube, a social media sensation, an absolute sensation. So I was doing my research on you, because obviously we boxed with each other almost 20 years ago, back on the squad in the days. I know. So reason why you're an inspiration to me, and I mean that wholeheartedly, right, our lives, mate, I do this all the time. I go off on different tangents and I've got a bit of ADHD, so please forgive me. But our lives, mate, it's unbelievable. When I have guests on this podcast, I often say to them, like, we share this story or we share that story. And I think when you're successful in life, you have parallels of other people that are successful. And success could be winning a medal at the Olympic Games, but it could also be raising a family as a single parent. So there's also successful people have parallels. Mate, yours and mine, our lives and careers, is scary how similar they are. Like, scary. And I've been doing the research for the last few days. Scary. We've got so many reflective parallels. It's ridiculous, and we'll talk about it along the way. I don't want to kind of give the story away along the way, but honestly, mate, when I say these things, it's crazy. One thing I'm not a YouTube sensation like you. So for how big you are, if people don't know about you, for the non-boxer people that don't know about you, mate, if you added up all your followers from social media, from YouTube, you've got a greater followership than population of Croatia, Moldova, Mongolia, Uruguay, Puerto Rico, Armenia, Lithuania, Kosovo, Trinidad and Tobago, and Jamaica. The Tony Jeffries fan base. The fan base of Tony Jeffries would be, if it was a country, the 128th most populated country in the world. You've currently got a legion of disciples, a legion of followers of over 4,085,000 people, and 4,085,400 people. And what I think is absolutely hilarious, I was on your YouTube channel yesterday. You've got Tony Jeffries Spanish, you got Tony Jeffries Mandarin, you got Tony Jeffries Hindi. It's ridiculous. You are a sensation around the world.
Yeah, I didn't know I had that many followers. That's great. I'll start putting that in. I'll start sending this clip to potential sponsors now. Like, look, this is what you're getting involved with. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, mate, it is. I've went like yourself. Like, you know, if I'm going to be in, I'm going to be in. Like, you know, I want to be 2 feet in. And like I was in boxing, and like you were in boxing, you've got to give it your all and focus and dedicate your life to it. And I've kind of done that. And when you talk about the parallels with me and you, you're 100% right. I remember when I think you might have been 19 years old or 20 years old. I'm a bit older than you. And you had a car with
your name 4 years.
So what it is?
You're 4 years and 1 Olympic cycle older than me.
Right, yeah. So, yeah.
So I've always been looking at you. You've always been like, as I said, like in boxing and in life and in business, you've always been that person that I'm looking at. You're paving the way for people like me, and for that I want to thank you.
Oh, nice one, mate. Yeah, I remember you had that car with World Champion on the side, right? When you were young, you had a sponsored car with your name on the side. What was it? Remember that?
Yeah, yeah. 17. Yeah, Suzuki Swift, 2006, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, I love it. And, you know, what I teach people now, because I've got a boxing certification course, I'm talking about building brand, and what we've got to do as athletes, as boxers, back then is like, you've got to build your name as a brand, because, you know, it's like Jay-Z says, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman, meaning you are your own business. And yeah, so I love that what you've done. And I don't know if you know, but I was the first boxer to get a website, and I had my website done, and I was promoting myself all the time, kind of like you were doing. And I've always been creative and wanting to get press when I can get press, and build a name whenever I can build my name, and get out there as much as I can, like a bit of a media whore. And it's kind of paid off. It's kind of paid off now. Because especially coming back from the Olympics, as you know, you're hot stuff. You're in the limelight all the time, and I've never let that limelight kind of disappear. Even though I retired for a while, I always try to keep my name out there and keep busy and and that's kind of helped me to now. Even though people are not following me on YouTube because I'm an Olympian, or they don't know me because I'm an Olympian, they know me because of YouTube, and then they find that out. Like, I'm walking around the streets of Thailand now, I'm getting recognised, getting pictures with people every single day, and it's crazy to me. And like, coming back from Beijing, it wasn't like this. It might have been like that in Sunderland, but in Thailand, or when I've just been in Japan or in Hawaii, it's happening everywhere because of the online presence that I've got now. And like I said, it's just by putting the work into this, like I put into boxing.
I want to deep dive into your life, and I would like to start in the boxing career, because that's what you did. Boxing was your first love, right?
Yeah.
Boxing was your first love. You started at 10 years old, you mentioned. Mate, you had such a storied amateur and professional career. Let's dig into some of the highlights. Do you remember your first schoolboy title?
Yes. Yeah.
Where was it? Who'd you beat? What was the score?
It was Barnsley Metrodome.
Same as me.
Oh, really? Yeah. I stopped him in the first round. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I had big man strength I was a 13-year-old. I was punching hard. So, yeah. And then it was the same the next year. I stopped the guy in the final there for the schoolboy title. So, I remember stuff like that well, but I forget a lot of stuff as well. I don't know if you're the same. You know, I forget a lot of stuff. Yeah, and that's why another thing we might talk about on this is I'm big into brain health and trying to get our brains as healthy as they can, because we've been punched in the face thousands of times. How many fights did you have total, amateur and professional?
So, mate, goodness me, I've got, you know what it's like, I got punched in the head so many times I don't even remember. When we were kids and young men, we'd go to a different tournament every single week, and you'd have 2 fights, 3 fights, 4 fights, come back and go to Poland, and then go to Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan and Germany. So, man, I genuinely lost count. Hundreds. Like, I know you've said you've had 106 fights in your life.
Yeah. So from that, I've done the maths, and I've been punched in the face like 40,000 times with all the training and the build-up and all that, which is ridiculous. So you'll be the same.
I mean, I've heard you say that numerous times anyway, but for those who haven't heard Tony Jeffries talk before, 40,000 times punched in the head, from being 10 years old sparring to retiring at 27. I think you and I, there's like life works out best for those who make the best of the way life works out. And the way you look at things, if you change the way you look at things, and things you look at change. And you and I had our careers stolen from us as we were entering the peak of our athletic powers. However, there's one way to look at it. We were saved 10 years of getting punched in the head. We saved ourselves 10 more years of getting bludgeoned by big, strong, horrible, smelly, sweaty boxers that punch hard and are trying to kill. So, mate, we're gonna get into this in a bit down the road, but I want to focus on your boxing career, because although you are a sensation now at what you're doing, and I'm so happy for you for that, it's the boxing career that made you, and the work ethic that you have now that's made you become a success was learned from the gym, the press-ups, the punching, the sparring, the running. One of the things we are so similar at, we both had major success at major tournaments as kids, as cadets. You won the European Championships as a kid, right?
Yeah. You won the Worlds, right?
I won the world. Can you remember some of those fights and how you felt in being the champ, being the best ever boxer in Europe?
I was 16, I was put on this programme, and then my first tournament, I'd boxed for England a few times, was the European Championships, the Cadet Championships, and I went to them, and then I won the gold medal there. I boxed 3 times, I stopped all 3 opponents, which was, I didn't even realise how big it was. Then when I come back, I was like, I was the first English boxer to win a European title in like 20-something year. And that just showed the government that the funding was working, even though we just got on it. So then they'd put more money into it through my success as well. Not they would have continued to do it anyway, but I got told that helped with the funding. And then, and then next thing I'm a European champion. I couldn't bloody believe it, and I kind of start getting paid a little bit from England. It was like £500 every 3 months. But when you're a 16-year-old at school, it was amazing getting 500 quid, you know. And then the funding really started, I think, when I was like 17, 18, and you start getting on, I think it was £500 a month or something like that, and then it just snowballed from there.
So the Olympics. Let's talk about the Olympics because it's the greatest spectacle in the world, the granddaddy of all granddaddies in terms of sport and entertainment. Your Olympic experience, how fondly do you remember it? The qualification, the getting there, when you finally qualified and you could say you were an Olympian and get the rings tattooed on your body. What was that feeling like?
Mate, it was the best because before my 2008, in the previous 8 years, there was only 3 boxers ever went to the Olympics. In previous 8 years, 3 boxers from Great Britain, which was Audley Harrison, Courtney Fry and Amir Khan. So just to think you're going to get there, you know, like deep down, it was like, I didn't really believe that I would have got there. So to go through that 8 years training program of all the fights, surgeries and all other stuff that come with it, and then finally, you know, get there to qualify for the Olympics. So that was up there with one of the best feelings in my life. It really was, because as well, I boxed in Chicago. I boxed their American team captain, Christopher Downs, with the arena shouting, USA, USA. So that was the one before the qualifier. But yeah, the qualifier was amazing. How was your qualifying experience?
Mate, my qualifying experience, it was that week we went to Trabzon. I had, like you, mate, I had major injury problems. At the Worlds the year before, the first qualifier, I dislocated my shoulder in a fight against a Russian. For half fight with one arm, beat him 12-1, the world number 1. Beat him 12-11, sorry, by 1 point. I went and I fell down in round 2. He swung me down, I fell down. And as I fell down, my shoulder popped out of the socket, and I stood up in phases. I kind of stood up, and my arm was on the floor still, and I had to kind of push it back in the socket. And so I sub-locked it. It popped out and went back in, but it was jangling in my shoulder socket. And I had to fight the rest of the fight with one arm. Jab, hook, hold on to him, shove him. Jab, hook, hold on to him, shove him. European champion, world number 1. He was mustard. And at the end of the fight, it was a really hard fight. And at the end of the fight, they called us into the middle, and I win it in the red corner of Gogo. It was the biggest fight of my life. Nobody really thought I was going to beat him. And I went to celebrate, and my shoulder came out. I couldn't even celebrate the biggest win of my life. And then that was this. I had to win 3 fights to qualify. Then my next fight, I had to fight a Brazilian, a southpaw, and I just beat the world number 2. The Brazilian was world number 10. So I beat the world number 1. The Brazilian was world number 9. He's in my section of the draw. I had the world number 1 and 9, and I had to beat 2 seeded boxers to qualify. And then he was a southpaw. My backhand was fucked. I couldn't throw the backhand, and then he beat me. Then I had to come home. I flew home from Azerbaijan. I had surgery the very next day. I had to do a 12-month rehab in 4 months. Rushed back to go for the second qualifier, and I qualified. In one of my fights against the Georgian, I was 6 points down going into the last round, and I'd overturned this 6 points. I have no idea how I did it, mate. So from Beijing, and this isn't about me, this is very much about you, and your story is way more interesting than mine, and I want to get back onto you as soon as possible. But to finish this story, so I was boxing this Georgian, Jaber Kishnevili his name was, and I was 6 points down going into the last round to qualify for Olympic Games. And he, Lee Pullen, the nicest, calmest boxing coach in the world, would talk to me like a gentleman. He slapped me after round 2. What the fuck you doing? The Olympics, you're gonna blow it. And then I just lost my head. I lost my head, and I had 3 minutes, 180 seconds to keep my Olympic journey alive, my dream alive. And from Beijing to London, the 4-year Olympic cycle, from your cycle to my cycle, in elite international boxing, not one person had ever overturned a 3-point deficit in the last round, in the Europeans, in the World, in the Olympics. 4 points is unimaginable, 5 points is impossible. I was 6 points down. And the boxing had gone out the window. It's just a case of who wants it more. I worked so hard in that last round. I overturned a 6 point, 1 on a count back. Don't know how I did it. true story, in that last round, I gave myself exercise-induced asthma. I worked so fucking hard that my poor little chest capillary just exploded. Anyway, I qualified, and the weird thing for me was the really strange experience for me, because, like you said, the expectations had changed. And your cycle, like your lot, the Gale, Frankie Gavin, all those boys, you did change it for us, because, like you said, Audley Harrison went to the Olympic Games and he was the one, him and Courtney Fry. Then Amir Khan went, he was the one person, the 17-year-old went. We weren't expected to do anything, really, at that point. And then we got the money. Then your lot went through, started doing better. So now the mindset had changed. We were like, oh, Jeffries won a bronze medal. The Gals won a gold medal. David Price has won a bronze medal. We can do this. It's now more achievable for us. So again, I keep saying it, and I'm not licking your ass because you're on my podcast. I'm saying thank you to you, because you did help blaze a trail for us. And the guys on the squad now, I'm sure they're going to go and win a bag full of medals in Paris next year. I hope they have the respect that I have for you, for the people that have led the way, because without them, we don't do it. Anyway, but so when I qualified, it was a strange feeling. I thought I was going to be doing backflips. I thought I was going to be doing cartwheels. I'm now an Olympian. Don't get me wrong, it was an amazing feeling. But I was like, okay, I'm here now where I should have been anyway last year before my shoulder got bad. So, like, I smiled. It was almost more relief. And then it was like, now back to business. Now let's go and get a medal. So it was a strange feeling. Anyway,
wow.
Mate, back to you.
That's crazy. No, that's crazy. How it was just like, oh yeah, I've qualified now, because just how amazing my feeling was, and that's unbelievable. Because I remember when you said about being behind, I can't remember the actual numbers, the stats, but it was one of those. Someone on the team, I think was he called Richard, who used to watch the videos and analyse and all that. He. What was the guy called on the team who used to watch the videos and all that?
Was it Robert Gibson?
Rob Gibson, yeah, it was Rob. They found out that there was like something like a 5% chance of winning the fight if you're down like 3 points going to the last round or something. That was when I was. So hearing you were down 6 points, like, you've lost that fight, but then you've somehow pulled that out the bag and battered that guy. That's a great round to watch of boxing. Just watching you just going crazy. So respect for that, mate. That's amazing. So hard to do. So well done, mate.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. But so you qualified. You're finally there. You're finally achieving your dream after years of boxing as a kid, schoolboys, junior ABAs, traveling the world on the England, the GB team for 8 years. The Olympic Games, when you get there, what were your expectations?
Well, I'd already been competing in the Commonwealth Games, so I kind of knew what a village environment was like. But this was like... And
that's important, isn't it? That's really important, having that multi-game. Because obviously, as boxers, we go around the world and we go to boxing competitions and boxing tournaments. Even like the Junior Olympics was a boxing tournament. When you first go to a multi-event competition, mate, everything's free. Like, isn't it crazy?
It's amazing, yeah. It's amazing. Proper eye-opener. So I guess because I had that experience from the Commonwealth Games, it was kind of like that, but like now it's on steroids and much bigger. But when I went to the Olympics, the tournament before, I boxed the Lithuanian, who was a world bronze medalist, southpaw, and he hit me with a left hand to the body. I ended up winning the fight, but he cracked me rib. So in the Olympics, before me fights, I was getting anaesthetic injected into me rib before each fight, so it would numb it, which was crazy. But anyway, to go there and then to come back with the medal, I was over the moon with that. I was over the moon. How did you feel after winning your bronze medal? Because you lose, but you still win the medal.
Yeah, so again, another thing I didn't realise, we both were getting, this is so weird to me, we were both getting injections into our ribs for cracked ribs before the Olympic Games.
Shut up.
Mate, I swear on my life. So my mum, again, this isn't my podcast, this is really about you, but so my mum had a brain aneurysm just before the Olympic Games, 5 weeks before, and my Olympic Games were... this is what I'm struggling with, and this is why I want to talk to you and generally learn from people like yourself, because I struggle to let things go, and I was very bitter about the Olympic Games for a long time. My mum, and she's my hero, and thank God she's still alive today, which is an amazing thing. She had a really bad brain aneurysm before the Olympics, so for a month I didn't do anything. I sat by her bedside, stroked her head, held her hand as she was in a coma. We had 1 week of training before the Olympics. We went to Sheffield, and I'm my mum's next of kin, so my phone's in my pocket the whole time. I haven't thrown a punch. I haven't gone for a run, haven't done a sit-up. The Olympic Games had gone from being the most important thing in my life to, I mean, I'd all but pulled out. And then my family, my then girlfriend, now wife, another thing we have in common, it convinced me to do the Olympic Games. I went to Sheffield, I had 1 week of training left. I sparred Fred Evans. We had a family, I don't know if you had this, but we had a family and friends day, and it was we got to invite our family and friends to come watch us train for one last sparring day. And all my family is in Adam Brooks with my mum. I'm by myself, my phone's in my pocket, haven't thrown a punch in a month. I come out, I throw a sloppy jab at the very beginning. Fred Evans, Traveller, all his dad and brothers around the ring, smacking the ring like it's a punch up at Appleby. And yeah, and he slips my jab, throws a right hook to the body, and he breaks my rib. And it cracks my rib, and it's still dislocated now. It still pokes out. When I do my talks, I get people up to kind of feel my rib here. I don't know if you can see it or not. I probably can't see it, but no.
I mean, I've got one exactly the same. It pokes out, mine does.
Yeah, so I wish. And I sat on the ring apron, and I was breathing. If you've had a cracked rib, like every time you breathe, like you're getting stabbed in the tummy, it's horrible. And as you know, and I sat there, my shoulder was dislocated. It would come out in a fight later on as a pro, because I'd never done the rehab properly, because I had to rush it. I had tears in both my Achilles tendons, which would keep me out the ring for a couple of years again as a pro. My rib was broken, and the worst thing is, I thought my mum's going to die, I'm never going to see her again. And that's my Olympics, mate. So when I won the medal, it was a medal of... And in my second fight of Olympics, I beat the world champion, the Ukrainian, the world number one, the new world number one. And I beat him in the second fight. And I thought, now I'm going to win the gold medal. I've got to win the gold. My mum's going to survive. I'm going to win the gold medal. I'm going to become the biggest star in the country. And I didn't. Because by the time I got to the semi-final, I had nothing, emotionally, physically drained, and I just, as you know, it's like such an intense cauldron of an environment. So it took me 8 years, and the Olympics were 11 years ago now. It took me 8 years to look at myself and be proud of what I did, rather than bitter than what I didn't do. And this is why I'm so impressed with you, because, as I mentioned at the very top, you got given shit along the way, and you turned that shit into gold. And I want to learn how you did that, because I want to let go of all the things. That's why I do this podcast, really. I'll talk to people that inspire me, so I can learn from them to let go of the shit and move forwards and have what is mine.
Yeah. What you said at the beginning as well, like you got handed shit and you turned it into gold. See, I think I got handed gold or bronze, but I think I got handed gold, and like that's like a huge thing. It's like, wow, I've done that. It's amazing, and I try to take the positives of things. Like, I'm so happy that I got forced to retire from boxing with my hands. I'm so happy, and like when I lost in the Commonwealth Games quarterfinals, I was absolutely devastated. But if I won gold, I'd probably return pro, and then I probably wouldn't have went to the Olympics, and then I probably wouldn't have done whatever else I've done. So I kind of think like that, you know. I don't really believe everything that happens for a reason. I'm not like saying that, but you know, I've been handed gold. You've been handed gold. You're an Olympic medalist. You're an Olympian. Like, I'm sure you've done the talks before. We had someone come in and talk about how amazing it is just to be an Olympian when we were before the games, and like. And it really is, like, we're part of this very exclusive club that not many people are part of. So we've been dealt gold, mate. And now I'm in Thailand. I went and done a Muay Thai class today. I'm absolutely useless, just for a laugh. But I posted a picture on it, the video on Instagram, and I'm looking there and I'm seeing these fighters who are the training people. These guys are working hard. They've got fucking no money. They're grafting, and people on the streets are grafting, like all day, every day. I've been working on my laptop getting a foot massage. It's like cost like $7, right? This woman, she's about 60 years old. She's grafting all day. Probably been doing this since she was 20 for 40 years, and so for me to think that I've been dealt anything but gold from the position that I'm in, you know, it's when you put yourself in that perspective, it's like, yeah, all right, like give it. But that being said, sometimes I do feel like shit. Sometimes I do feel down, and I think it's normal. And I do look at the negative side of life. But I've been working a lot for years now on looking at the positives rather than the negatives, because it's so easy to go down that rabbit hole of looking at negatives. And so now I try to think of the goodness rather than the shit, you know. So if you can try and switch that around and think, fucking hell, look, I'm here. You're still young. You've still got, what are you, 35 now? 36? 34, you're 34. You're still young. You've got the world at your feet. I didn't start, listen this, mate. What am I? I'm 38. I started YouTube when I was 35, right? So, and now I started YouTube when I was 35. Now, like I mentioned, I'm more well known now for YouTube than I ever was for boxing. I'm making more money now than I was when I was a professional. I just come back from the Olympic Games and fighting live on Sky Sports from doing this stuff. And this didn't start until I was 35 years old, you know? So it's like, you're still young. I'm still young now. I still didn't know what I'd be doing in 5 years' time. So when you think about it like that, it's like, bloody hell, all right, you know?
Mate, I'm going to, these last 5 minutes, I'm going to package it. I'm genuinely going to do this. I mean, I can't work computers, so I'm not going to be the person to do it, but I'm going to get these last 5 minutes packaged and play this on repeat over and over again, because that is my problem. I look at what... and I'm getting better now, but this conversation has helped cement this for me. I used to look at what I thought was mine, what I thought I deserved, and I used to look at like what I didn't have rather than the things that I do have. And yeah, mate, I should look at what I've got rather than what I haven't got. Yes, I haven't got the belt around my waist that Annie Joshua's got, or the money he's got, or the fame Tyson Fury's got. It was all the things that I wanted to get from my boxing career. But goodness me, I'm here now. I'm doing okay. I've got some businesses going on in the background. I'm talking to you about our lives as young men. I mean, when you start looking at the world in a good way, good things happen to you. And that's, mate, listen, you've got this amazing perspective and mindset and this positive approach to things, plus the work ethic that you developed in your boxing career. Of course you're going to have success. And it's unbelievable to hear that you've amassed 1.77 million subscribers on YouTube, just on your English one, never mind your Spanish one or your Hindi one or your Mandarin one, in 3 years. That's so incredibly inspiring, mate. It really is. All
that comes down to is like, you know, being focused and dedicating, and like, I dedicated my life not just on like, if you think about, let's just say YouTube for example, it's not just getting your phone, creating a video and uploading it to YouTube and then everything will happen from there. No. And I've researched, I watch YouTube videos, educating myself all the time on what makes a video good, whether it's a podcast video or a boxing education video or a cooking video or a news video, what makes it good, and learning about like retention and how to hook people in and how to keep them on the video till the end and how to get a good thumbnail and create it, and dedicating myself to learning. And there's not one thing in the world that you can't learn for free on YouTube. You can learn anything you want. So if you want to market yourself better to be a bigger name in wrestling. There's stuff out there with your creative mind that you could do to do that. If you want to learn how to edit videos, learn how to edit graphics, learn how to blow up on social media, it's all there, you know.
It's really inspiring hearing you say that. Why do more people not do it?
That's what I'm blown away by, like especially boxers, because I've said this before. Lots of people, like, I can't understand it, because the work ethic that went in to have success in boxing, even boxers that's never achieved like what you or I have, like even just a professional boxer who's a prospect, the work that they put in is ridiculous. Like, they're really dedicated with the diet, with the training, with the lifestyle. If they can put that work ethic into something else, it's only got to go one direction, right? So it makes me think, are people being lazy in not doing that when it's there, or do they not want it enough? Well, I want it. I wanted boxing. I want this. So that's why I think it's doing well.
Some of our similarities, mate, as I mentioned a couple already, we both won a major tournament as a kid, Europeans Worlds. We both went to the Olympics and won a medal at 23 years old. We both turned pro, had injury-ravaged careers. We were both active pros for less than 3 years. We both had our last fight at 27 years old. We both married our high school sweethearts. We both had injections in our ribs before the Olympic Games. And we were both forced to pivot and change. And there's way more, by the way. Both got sisters, both this, both that. We were both forced to pivot and change. And that's what this podcast is about. It's about getting knocked down, be it in a boxing ring, i.e. Tony Bellew getting back up and winning the world title against Mekubu. He got knocked down, got back up, knocked the guy out in the next round. He got back up and he became world champ. Or it's metaphorically yourself, myself, getting knocked down and getting our dreams snatched away from us, and having the resilience, determination, the drive to get back up after achieving so much stuff in our boxing careers and to go again, to get the life that we wanted. So I want to focus on the get him back up side of things now. I'm not too fussed about the pro career, because, like, when I think of Tony or Jeffrey, I don't think of a pro boxer. Similar to me, people think of injuries and then whatever. Is there anything you want to talk about in your pro career?
No, I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I prefer the amateurs.
What do you not like about it?
It was just unprofessional. I got ripped off with some money off my promoter, and I liked being on TV and what that kind of brought, and getting paid lots of money, which was great. But I didn't like it. And for you, I know you boxed 3-minute rounds, right? Where I boxed 2-minute rounds, so it was a big transition with that. But no, I didn't like it. I just didn't like the business side of it. I couldn't trust people and stuff.
It's a dirty sport, and I don't mean that in terms of just promoters being like shady or whatever. It's dirty in the terms of when we used to go away to box for Great Britain, we'd go to Lithuania, we'd go to these different places, and although we used to go to some shit places, it was always clean. We got brand new head guards, we got gloves. It was very well. I mean, it was Olympic Games, the World Championships, the Commonwealth Games, and then you go and box in a sports centre in God knows where, and you kind of like. It's just all a bit dirty and murky, wasn't it? Like wearing like used gloves, or I know people that used to train in their gloves all week on the bags, hit the bags with their fight gloves, box them in, so it's basically knuckle on leather, and wear those gloves on fight night. And I'm thinking, how is this a thing? This is professional boxing. It's the most unprofessional sport in the world.
I wore the same gloves for 3 fights, and I trained in them as well. Like these 10-ounce gloves, I was like, I'm getting away with this. Like, why not? It was just so. I'm like, this is wrong. I did it though, but it's like it's wrong. It's wrong, mate. And especially when I'm the A side, I guess, in fighting these journeymen. I remember my first pair of boxing gloves I wore in in me pro debut, they were like wet and soggy and had blood on off the person who just fought in them. And I'm like, just got back from the Olympics, and next I'm wearing these things, some BBE, like horrible things where you could feel your knuckle right in them. Yeah, horrible. Anyway, let's move on from the pros. I'm not a fan.
So, yeah. I mean, I hear there. I've got other reasons as well why I'm a bit bitter, but like you said, I'm learning.
Promoter, mate. Who was your promoter?
I joined the Golden Boy. So, mate, my whole life, I joined Golden. Richard Schaefer was at the London 2012 Olympic Games, and Schaefer was there, front row, and he watched all the fights. He came to me after a couple of the fights. He was like, mate, listen, like, you know, we'll be in touch. After the games, I got a phone call from Oscar De La Hoya. Imagine being 23 years old, just got a medal in the Olympic Games. My mum's kind of like in and out of hospital, still in hospital, in a coma, in and out of consciousness from a coma. Oscar De La Hoya is ringing me, sending me emails, and I'm so with my mum and my family now, I'm kind of half ghosting Oscar De La Hoya. Long story short, Richard came over to meet us. We had a meeting. Richard Schaefer basically wanted to do what Eddie Hearn did with Matchroom USA. He wanted to make Golden Boy UK 10 years before Matchroom did the USA thing. So even before BT Sport was a thing, Richard Schaefer showed me the emails, him liaising with the people that became BT Sport. He was going to basically create Golden Boy UK. I was going to be the face of it after the Olympic Games. He wanted one or two other Olympians and obviously the roster to grow. But it was going to be my brand, and I was going to join Golden Boy. I signed with Golden Boy. Schaefer, really. Oscar was obviously the Stardust. Richard was the businessman. Within the first 6 months, I guess Richard and Oscar had a really big argument, and Oscar fired him. Oscar sacked him. So now I'm that football. And Oscar was good and he was good as gold with me. He was great, a real lovely bloke, great to work with. But I'm that footballer, signed by the manager. The manager was desperate to sign me. Manager's been sacked. New gaffer's in, doesn't really fancy me. Or he didn't not fancy me. Oscar didn't want to do the UK thing. He wanted to stay in. He wasn't that business savvy. He wanted to focus on the US. And he said, if you come to the US, then we'll promote you. My whole fan base was in the UK. I didn't want to go to the US. So I was in this weird thing where I was boxed on Matchroom shows, I'd boxed on a few Sauerland shows, I'd get an injury, and all this time things were happening. And I was thinking eventually, like, when I get back from the shoulder injury, like, things are going to be sorted. They weren't. Then I'd done my Achilles, or the other way around, sorry. And it was just really shit, mate. It was just really shit, weird, murky world where, and again, like with injuries on the GB squad, you go to Dr. Loosemore, my knuckle sore. Scan, bosh, treatment, you're back boxing in Poland 3 weeks later. As a pro, you do it all yourself. It's this. I remember I had a double Achilles surgery, and at the time I was living in East Anglia. I had to go into London to get my stitches changed, and I couldn't walk. But everyone was at work, and I wasn't earning enough money to pay people to come and take me to London for the day. I took the train from Lowestoft to London. Both my Achilles operated on. I couldn't bend my legs. I was walking like I don't know what I was. I don't know how I did it. I wasn't earning that good money because I was so early in my career. It was just shit. It was just a really shit career. When it could have been really good, it was just really rubbish. However,
mate, have you said publicly how much you've been paid for your boxing?
I don't know if I have actually. Oh, what I would say is I've said.
You sign on fee.
So sign-on fee was all right. It wasn't great, but it was okay. It was okay.
I got 40 grand. Did you get more than me?
A bit more.
And then for my fights, I got £12,000 when I fought in anywhere in the UK. I got £20,000 if I fought in Sunderland, which was supposed to be 3 times a year. So I sold the tickets there.
I got 10 grand for a 6-rounder, 15 grand for an 8-rounder, and 20 grand for a 10-rounder. And my 12-round competition fights were... my 12-round championship fights would have been negotiated. However, the fight I did in my eye, and I had 12 fights I was a pro for 6 years and active pro for 2.5 years. The fight I did in my eye, I took a pay cut to get the fight. £17,000. I left the ring with a shattered eye socket. I'm now 78% blind in my left eye, visually impaired. I've got no proprioception. I knock things over all the time. I walk into things.
Shit.
I can't drive. When I sit still and I don't move, my eyes aren't too bad. When I'm moving, that's when things struggle. So I can read a book, okay. I can drive, okay. Becoming a wrestler was really difficult for me to learn a whole new different moveset, body movement.
Wow.
It was just a nightmare. 17, I've had 10 operations on my eyes now after the injury. I spent 100, and my last surgery was 2 months ago here out in Atlanta. That was $3,500, and I got it really cheap because the guy heard my story and was like, mate, I ain't going to charge you $30,000. I'm going to charge you my surgical fee. And he waived his fee, and he needs to waive his fee. I spent £103,000, just $103,000 just on surgeries alone on my eye that never worked.
Wow.
Because somebody misdiagnosed me, had the wrong surgery performed on me. My whole thing. So with me, the reason why I haven't been so easy, I wish my last sounds really, really, really bad. And I'm really torn by saying this. Do I say it or not? But I wish, but my life would have been much easier had I got punched in the eye on that fight and my eyeball fell out. And now I'm 100% blind in my left eye. But the difficult thing for me was there was hope there, but the wrong thing was done. And then I got damaged more. Then I had the injection in my eye, which damaged the nerve, which now leads to the visual impairment. And my eye doesn't move properly. But there's glimmers, little chinks of light that I was going after. And over 3 years, I had 9 surgeries in 3 years, 10 in 7 years. And if my eye just fell out of my eyeball, of my head, then now I've got no choice but to move on. And I can look back on it. It is what it is. But I've got all this bitterness wrapped up inside me about how things went down. And that's why I've struggled to let go, because it could have been so great, but it wasn't with yourself. Your hands just crumbled when you hit, because you punched so hard. So you had no choice but to leave it alone. And almost like the decision was taken out of your hands, and it was what it was. With me, it could have been so great, but it wasn't. But anyway, honestly, mate, as I've said in this conversation alone already, I've learned that yes, my eye isn't great, but I'm so lucky that I still can drive. I'm lucky that I still can read a book. I still can wrestle. Wrestling is very hard for me with my visual impairment, but I can still do it. And if you didn't know, you wouldn't really know I had a problem, because I'm very good at what I do, and I've been able to work and adapt it. Mate, I want to last 10, 15 minutes. I want to talk about you and your massive successes. You had the hands. You were told you couldn't fight anymore. What did that do to you?
Yeah, so with me, my hand, I still thought I was going to be able to box and continue boxing. But by this time, I'd moved to America when I was waiting for my hands to recover. And I started teaching some boxing to people. And when my hand didn't get better, I kind of went straight into that. But when it first happened, I always think about that as the darkest time in my life, when I had surgery on my hand, on both hands, actually, and I couldn't do a thing. I had these big bandages on, and you know what it's like. Everybody asks you, "When's your next fight? When's your next fight? When's your next fight? When you fight again?" That's all you bloody hear. How's your hands? How's your hands? What I did, mate, and I guess this might be something as well. Yeah, I think you've done it as well, though. But like, I took myself out of that environment when I went to Los Angeles. And then no one knew about my boxing career. No one knew about my hands. And it was great. And no one was recognised in the street like they did in Sunderland, and like pulling us up and asking us about what's happening. Because when people just start telling you about this, it's just never out of your head. But now I'm out the way of that in Los Angeles, and I'm just got a new goal, which is teaching people boxing for fitness and starting a boot camp and all of that. That's kind of how I dealt with it, you know?
Yeah.
So
great for your mental health, being able to go away and switch off and get a whole new frame of mind. And mate, the thing is, when you've got both your hands are in the cast, you can't even have a wanker, mate, to relax, can you?
Well, my wife's a nurse, mate, and a pretty one of that, so I'm good, mate. She helps to wipe me arse and all that.
Lucky bastard.
Yeah.
On that one, on your wife, you mentioned it a couple of times now, and like you said, you this was a segue, not the wanking thing. That just came to me. Seeing you walking around with two big mummy hands. How have you two made it work through so much change? Tony Jeffries, the boxer, to Tony Jeffries, the entrepreneur, with your hand injuries and the ups and downs and setbacks. How have you two managed to kind of stay so strong and so close? How have you done it?
She's very selfless, where I'm more selfish. And she's opposite of me, where I'm like a million mile an hour, changing mind all the time, and I'm more of I'm more controlling. Where she's the opposite. She's very laid back, and she's a sweetheart, and she doesn't. She doesn't let us get me own way all the time, but we've just got a great dynamic. We've been with each other for a long time now, and it works.
That person, mate. You know that TV show? Have you seen the celebrity SAS Who Dares Wins? Have you seen that?
No, but you mentioned something. You just did that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I just did it in New Zealand, and basically they take 15 celebrities and they drop you in a different place in the world, and you've got to do special forces selection. And basically, I can't say too much because it's not going to air until early next year. But basically, I went there, and I quite like the me I am now. I mean, I'm not the boxer me, but I quite like me. But I miss that. I miss pushing myself to the limit. I miss that, like. When you're boxing, you got to be all fuck you sometimes, right? You got to go into a boxing match willing to knock somebody out and render them unconscious and be cool with it and be emotionless from it. And I miss that, the animal side. I miss getting that out on a daily basis, on a weekly, monthly basis when I used to box. And I did this TV show, and they always say to you, "Why do you do it?" And because the money's terrible. Money's not. It's not a good financial. You're not going to get a lot of money for it, but it's a good platform. But I did it because I wanted to see if I still had that inside me that comes out sometimes. He came out in day 2. I mean, he came out like in a really bad way. He came out and some, which was great. Then the rest of the time I had to kind of learn to control it. And the point I'm making is that the boxer animal side of me doesn't really serve me in life anymore because I don't do what I used to do. I don't get to expel it on a daily basis. So I'm now learning about the whole new side of myself where I'm okay being the me I am now. I like being the me I am now. It's just I've got to be okay with putting that to bed and having this conversation with you is being okay and putting what didn't happen to bed and being happy with what I've got rather than unhappy by what I didn't get.
Where you mentioned that you said I wish I taught you a few years ago. I'm sure I tweeted you after this went wrong, after you start getting injured, saying let's chat. Did I not tweet you saying? I'm sure I did. You did,
mate. You did, but I wasn't. You did reach out to me actually. I was off social media. I was in the midst of my depression. My head was in the sand. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was horrible. And as I mentioned a minute ago, I'm surprised my wife put up with me for so long. I was in a bad mood. I was depressed. Everything was their fault. Basically, shit happened to me. And rather than address it like a grown up, it's everybody else's fault. I was pointing the finger. You. The surgeon did this, and don't get me wrong, I had some really, really, really shit luck that you couldn't make up. But I was pointing the finger all the time. And when you point a finger at somebody, you got 3 fingers pointed back at you. And I refuse to believe any of it was my fault. I refuse to believe that like I'm in a situation because of the way I look at things or the way I treat certain things. When really looking back now, I should have looked at where I was and said, yeah, this is shit where I'm at. But ultimately, this is my life. And I've got to figure things out if I'm going to have the life I want to have. I didn't do that, and I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to accept help. I wasn't ready to look at myself. But I've been ready for last year, and that's what I'm doing. I'm working on myself, and, things happen for a reason, and, it's up to you to find out what that reason is, I believe. But I'm with all the stuff going on, I'm in a pretty decent place. And yeah, on this journey of discovery and learning about other successful people like yourself.
Yeah, and as well, mate, you're still young. Like, you don't know what you're going to be doing. We're still young, and we're in a world right now where we can do with the internet, where anything's possible. But what I would say, because you've always got that Olympic medal, which is no one else has really got them. There's always opportunities that will come your way, but you try and put yourself out there more to try and get these opportunities. Because to someone, to a lot of people, you're like a huge deal who they can't believe. Like, wow, it's Anthony Ogogo, you know. But to you, you're probably you don't feel that way because you're feeling like down. I could have done this, I could have done that. But no, you're like a hero to so many people. You really are. And once you understand that, and it's like, wow, I really am. I've went against the odds and done. I mean, just listening to your story now, you weren't supposed to win these fights that you've won and got to where you've got to, but you've bloody done it. So that tells me that you can do anything you want. Coming back from a fight 6 points down, like that tells me that you are a hard bastard and you can do whatever the fuck you want to do in your life. You just need to get your mind right. Just think of that Lee Pullen slapping you across the fucking face and saying, come on, mate, pull your head out your arse. Fucking do this. That's your motivation right there. And you can do anything you want, mate. You really, really can. You're a fucking beast, mate. You really can.
Yeah, but you're too nice. I feel like I've just got the best therapy session of my life. I feel this is meant to be about you and your life and your career, and you've just wrapped your big, strong Sunderland arms around me and given me a big hug, which I really appreciate. So thank you so much.
We speaking now, like we haven't connected for a few years, but now we're back on connection and we're talking, like, not for any other reason than we just on social media together, but like now we've got numbers and I'm here for you. Any advice, anything I can do, just send me a voice note. And same, if I ever need you for anything or whatever, I know you'll be there for me as well, because it goes both ways. So it's what we do. We're brothers,
Yeah, we lived a very similar life, and I respect anybody, whether you're, good, bad, or indifferent. Anybody kind of who steps in the boxing ring and has the willingness to get punched in the head and to go to the gym and put the work in, and like us, travel the world at a higher level. I respect anybody because it shows you've got something, and I respect that, no matter who you are. And I respect that. Jeffries, so you have no idea how much I've got. I've got so much that I want to talk to you about. I just don't think it's the right time today. I think we've had such a beautiful conversation of talking about, like, alpha men talking about struggles, ups, downs, pivoting. There's so much I want to talk to you about, which I'm going to mention now, but we're going to wrap up in a second, because I'd love, if you want to have you back on at some point in the very future. I want to talk about brain health. Yeah, you mentioned earlier. I love that. You've been punching the head 40,000 times. Yeah. Which is crazy. I guarantee, because our lives are the same, I've probably been punching the head 40,000 times per punch, exactly the same. I've got things in my memory. I've recently been diagnosed having ADHD, which is reason one of my brain goes off like this, and wasn't always like that. And I'm now fascinated by the link between mental health issues of ADHD, depression, and repetitive brain trauma. It fascinates me because I'm living it. Memory issues, potential anger problems. I mentioned SAS who dares wins recently. So there's loads I want to talk about. Your gym, box and burn, how you pivoted. We never really got to the having to go again, but you went again, and you went so hard, and you created what you've created is not just an amazing life for you and your wife and your family, but you've created a place for people to go and train and to become better versions of themselves, which is also something I want to do with my own fitness program. So, Matt, I'd love to have you back at some point in the real distant near future and just talk about more of your successes. So I feel like you're such a nice guy. You've put a lot of the shine on me. And this is all about you. I want this to be about you. So next time you come on, mate, let's all talk about you, if that's okay.
No, let's talk about you, mate. I mean, your story is as good as anyone's, and your inspiration is as much as anyone. You know, you're a big inspiration. You've like gone against the odds. You're the man at that, you know. So yeah, I'd love to come back on. We'll do a part 2, maybe a part 3. I feel like we could just talk all day, mate. Yeah,
mate. You're an absolute legend. You really are one of the nicest blokes in boxing. Thank you so much,
nice
Tony Jeffries. Right, I'll speak to Zen and let's get a part 2 in the diary pretty soon. I'm sure everyone's really been fascinated by this conversation. You are a magnetic, charismatic, charming, successful man,
nice
and it's a pleasure to be your friend. Cheers, Tony.
Yeah, no, you too, mate. Thank you so much, mate. Appreciate it.
Wow. I hope you enjoyed that podcast as much as I enjoyed it. There are so many life lessons in that from Tony, who's lived a really rich and full life. And if you follow him on social media at Tony Jeffries, like, you can see the life he's living. He's traveling the world with his beautiful wife and his gorgeous kids. He gets invited to boxing things all around the world. Just last month, he was at the big boxing event, Fury versus Ngannou, in Saudi Arabia, standing there shoulder to shoulder with Mike Tyson, with George Foreman, with all these legends in the world of boxing. Why? Because when he had to retire, when he got knocked down, he picked himself back up and created a massively, unbelievably successful business. Tony Jeffries, I'm so proud of you, mate. You're doing so well. My main takeaway from that podcast was perspective. And I mentioned a couple of times, he was given shit and he turned it into gold. And he said, no, I was given gold. Like, having to retire from boxing at 27 years old, that's gold. He saved himself 10 years getting punched in the head. And at 35 years old, he started his YouTube channel. Now at 38, he's a YouTube sensation, earning loads of money and inspiring people all around the world. I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, like, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's kind of contradictory, but it's not really, because when you look at things with a positive mindset and outlook, you get positivity back. And the thing is, the biggest learning thing I took from Tony Jeffries was I had no idea where my Olympic medal was for the first 8 years after the Olympic Games. My mum's house, my nan's house. I used to keep it in a sock under my bed because I wasn't particularly proud of my achievements. Because like I said on the podcast, I was more bitter about what I didn't get, the gold medal, than proud of what I did get in my own journey. And it took me 8 years of seeing my medal and being pissed off, or seeing somebody who won a gold medal and being a little bit jealous before I was able to kind of let those feelings go. And even now in 2023, approaching 2024, those emotions often creep up on me. Less now than before, but they are still there. And then it's talking to Tony. He said, mate, you're an Olympian. Mate, we're in such a special club. And it's hearing those words being reinforced that you think, wow, actually, that was a great achievement. And it's all about the way you look at things. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Tony, mate, thank you so much for just helping me, inspiring me to kind of let go of all the things holding me back. And that's the thing in life. We go through circumstances and situations in life and we cling on to things. We hold on to things. You can't let things go. And someone said to me a long time ago, when you hold on to regrets, you're being chained to your past. You have to break free from the shackles of the past to move forwards. And it sounds so simple, but sometimes you've got to be in the right place in your life to hear these things and let them kind of impregnate into your brain and you take them on. And hearing Tony talk, for me, was the perfect time to hear this guy talk about his life, and it's inspired me. And I hope this podcast has inspired you too. I urge you to send this about and share it to your friends and loved ones to let them learn from Tony Jeffries and my story. And like, share, subscribe to the podcast. It really, really helps. And next week, the podcast continues to roll on, and I'm staying boxing related, and I'm staying Olympic bronze medal related. Next week, I've got the big man, David Price, on the podcast, another Olympic bronze medal winning boxer, just like Tony Jeffries, just like myself. David Price was heralded as the great White Hope, the next legend, heavyweight boxing legend from the UK. Thing didn't quite go the way they could have went, and we talk about his whole boxing career, the ups, the downs, the setbacks, and the tribulations, but we always finish on a happy ending. There's a big happy ending at the end of David Price's podcast. So, with that being said, tune in next week to David Price Getting Back Up podcast. And in life, when you suffer setbacks, there's only one thing to do, and that's get back up. Get back up like Tony Jeffries did and become a superstar in a whole different field if you have to. I'll see you next week.